I'm pretty pumped about this. It's funny, oftentimes when, as a speaker and you're working on content, you can get a sense that the Lord's put a word in your heart. And I had that sense this morning because even as of about 4 o'clock this morning when I was up holding my daughter in one hand and typing with the other, I thought I was going to have a continuation of our series, Boys to Men. And then all of a sudden the Holy Spirit just revised things. He said, no, I want you to talk about these things that can guarantee if you do it, that this year will be better than last year. So I want to talk about these 7 things, and I want you, as I list them, they're not necessarily in order of importance, but I want you to think about how these 7 things apply to you and how you'll apply them in 2011. It's hard to believe 2000. You remember when it was Y2K? Whatever happened to Y2K, and now 11 years later. So 7 things that you can do, 7 things that you can do to guarantee that this year, if you will put these in practice, I guarantee that this year will be better than last. Number 1, stop wanting from someone something they have no intention of giving you. Stop wanting from someone something they have no intentions of giving you. This is one of the most foolish things you can do. I often say it's like taking the baby from the car seat in the back and putting him in the driver's seat. Or it's like taking the most irresponsible person you know in your life and placing them in the driver's seat of your emotions and expecting to get to your destination safely. Stop wanting from someone something that they have no intention of giving you. Use discernment. Recognize limitations. For some of us, it may be an explanation. It's an explanation from a wayward father. It's an explanation from someone that you were friends with and they slighted you. For others, it's an apology. It's very clear from the way things went down that they owe you an apology. I like to say when you look at these examples, it's what I call justified resentment. In other words, if you were to explain the scenario to 100 people, 98 of them would conclude that you were right. And that's tough. I know personally that I've experienced justified resentment several times, and it's as though love covers a multitude of sins, but you have to be prepared to just say, you know what, I'm going to cover this act. I may not get what I'm entitled to. Literally, when you think about the word forgiveness, it means to cancel the debt. It means I relinquish my right to collect what I'm rightfully owed. Forgiveness doesn't mean the debt doesn't exist. Forgiveness means I relinquish my right to collect it. Another definition of forgiveness means is I'm no longer going to interact with you based on the infraction. So for some, it's an explanation. For others, it's an apology. For others, it's repayment of money. You work hard for your money. And when someone's casual or glib, you lend someone some money and they don't even bring it up anymore. Next thing they're telling you about their vacation to Barbados. And you're thinking, well, that's nice and all, but what happened to my money? They're telling you about their new flat screen, or you got to see this new iPad, or this iTouch, or whatever, and they're talking about some new gadget that they have. And you're like, that's cute and all. Oh, they're talking about some boots they're wearing, and they're telling you about the sale at the store, and then the cashier was so nice, and she put an extra 10% on. And you're thinking, okay, that's fine, but what about my money? For others, it might be recognition or acknowledgement. One of the saddest things is how casual we can be about our relationships and how we live in a culture where people just blow folks off and they move on to the next. So if you want to guarantee that this year is better than last, I want to challenge you to stop demanding something from someone that they have no intention of giving you. If they give it to you, it's gravy. If they give it to you, praise the Lord. But you don't want your emotions to be tied to them giving it to you. You don't want the emotions to be tied to the repayment. You don't want the emotions to be tied to the apology. Now, it's easy to say this, but I raise my hand the highest. Making the decision to forgive is one of the easiest things to do. Or not one of the easiest, but it's less challenging than staying in forgiveness. And if you're like me, the enemy will work overtime to have you meditating and thinking about people who've slighted you, particularly when your heart's pure, particularly when your motive's right. So in 2011, your homework is make a list of the people that you may be demanding something from, and they have no intention of giving it to you. They may be incapable of giving it to you. They may be too immature to give it to you. They may be too irresponsible to give it to you. They may be too aloof to give it to you. They may not know how to take ownership. You can't place your happiness on hold waiting for someone else to change. And remember, we have a finite amount of mind share, and the enemy goes for the biggest bang for the buck. And if he can get you, this is one of his best tools, because if he can get you, if he can get me in unforgiveness, he can actually move on to someone else, because then we start the process of self-victimization, because we keep replaying it over and over and over, running through the scenario, telling it to as many people who will listen to us. So ask yourself, is there someone that I'm demanding something from? I want recognition. You know I did that. I want an apology. You know that was wrong what you did to me. I want repayment of the money. I want you to set the record straight. I want an explanation. Why'd you slight me like that? Why'd you dog me behind my back? If 2011 is going to be better than 2010, one of the best things you can do is stop demanding, stop wanting something from somebody who has no intentions of paying you back. Ask yourself, who fits that category? Number 2, we're talking about 7 things that can guarantee that this year is better than last. They will guarantee that there'll be more fulfillment, more peace, that you'll get more out of life because you're not wasting time on negative energies. Number 2, if I'm going to guarantee that 2011 is better than 2010, I want to make sure that I live my life in what we're going to call day-tight compartments. Day-tight compartments. Let me explain to you. The only power that you have in your life is the power you exercise with the strength you have today. The scriptures support this. Let me give you some scriptures before we jump into this. 2 Corinthians 6:2 says, "Behold, now is the acceptable time of the Lord," or now is the day of salvation. Behold, now is the day. Psalm 46:1 tells us that God is our refuge and strength and a very present help in the day of trouble. Matthew 6:34 says, "Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about its own things, but sufficient for the day," notice the reference, 3 different references to day, "is its trouble." And I like this one big time. Deuteronomy 33:2. Deuteronomy 33:2 out of the New King James says this, "As your days are, so shall your strength be." In other words, what I'm alluding to is God only gives you enough grace to deal with today's problems, today's challenges. He doesn't give you tomorrow's grace to deal with today's issues. So if I'm going to make sure this is better, I have to realize that no matter what I'm confronted with, my mindset is I'm going to live in day-tight compartments. I'm not going to try to figure out what's going to happen tomorrow. I'm not going to try to that doesn't mean you don't plan, but I'm not going to get overwhelmed, because God's only going to give me the grace to deal with the issues that I have to confront today. Now, this is a great illustration of this is there was an article by a famous physician named Osler, and he was making some observations about ocean liners. And one of the things that was fascinating is he said that ocean liners are designed in such a way that there's steel doors that are lowered on the hull whenever there's damage. So that if the ship gets damaged in any way and water starts to come in, they have buttons that lower a steel hull so that the water gets compartmentalized.